I'm going to see if I can splice this bit with the bit that I had before. That's recorded, but I might not. I probably won't do. End up as two separate videos. Because I can't remember what it is I was talking on the bit before. The door was knocked by the Amazon people. Splicing. Interesting word. It's a keep it sweet, no, keep it short and sweet. Splicing. It's one of the things that has it gives as an activity. Splicing of genes, as an example. Splicing of audio tape and videotape. It's bringing things together. It's a form of editing. So I've noticed, I comprehend, overstand, understand the ways in which splicing in all forms of human activity has occurred across the ages of world history. I'm being particular. I'm trying to be mindful of the language that I use. Always have been. I've never really understood why, bitting and bobbing now, because I always had the sense that there was this phrase as I was growing up: loose lips sink battleships. Always intrigued me. Also, as a phrase, you can say things and that can get you into bother. Got that quite early on as a concept. Be mindful of the words that you use. You can never take your words back, and so on. Then there are those words that are written, that are placed before you, that are used to inform you about how the world is, what's on my mind and in my heart, or my perception of how the world is. Anyway, right, I'm just noticing the time, so I'm 2 minutes in, I'm not doing too bad. Right, so where did I want to get to? I wanted to get to, I'd been talking about Ukraine in the previous segment, and how that it's a fiction, essentially. Okay, nice link actually. So I've just been talking about language, loose lips, sink battleships, the words that we might use, the words that I might use, the words that I hear, and the meaning that I make from those words, and what is being conveyed in the words, the language that is either written or that is spoken to me, about the perception that the other might have of me and the world that they occupy, and be specific about that, or the way that the world is perceived by them. And vice versa. Yeah, I can do this too, you know. And that's why I'm mindful of the language that I use to convey my perception and my experience of the world, and the other, and me in relation to the world and another person. So I do that because I want to be clear, I want to be accurate, I don't want to mislead. Mislead. nor do I want to be misinterpreted either. Now that's been difficult, particularly the last bit, and it can be difficult to do that because, especially if you don't know, if you can't be absolutely sure of the truth, or I suppose you can be absolutely sure of what it is that you've been informed about how the world is, or how you are, or who you are, and who the other is, and who the other is, and how the world is in relation to you, and the variations on those themes. So, what's that got to do with anything? Not sure, really. I suppose I am wanting to say, needing to say, that it is time, which is also a social construct, but the age is here when the indigenous, wherever you may be, and yes, one could argue that we're all indigenous, and we've all become one big melting pot, so that we don't, and because we're all in one big melting pot, we don't know who's indigenous to who, where, what, where, and all the rest of it. Or so we are led to believe. But it's not that difficult to trace one's ancestry if you really want to do that. Not that ancestry. Yes, you can trace one's ancestry, but in terms of knowing who you are, because that's part of being indigenous or Aboriginal. It also contains pedigree. It includes, it has as part, or the aspect of knowing who you are. It gives you a sense of belonging for the start, but it says who you belong to, the tribe, if you will, but also the culture of that tribe's outlook on the world and the people in it, the animals upon it, and the universe and the cosmos, and their relationship to it. It gives you an idea, that's what being Aboriginal, indigenous, and getting in touch with that, knowing that. So it's one thing to know what, I suppose what Aboriginal, indigenous means, but what it looks like and how it's lived out is slowly being lost. That's an interesting thought. Slowly being lost. It's not. It's been slowly eradicated. It seems to me that thoughts just dawned on me for quite some time. Excuse me. Yeah, it is a quite nasty chesty cough. It's a bit man flu-ish for me. Ooh. So, yes, in short, I wanted to say that it's incumbent, it's important, and the reason why it's important, for the sake of mankind, for the continuance. I mean, in some ways, that's not in any doubt that mankind is prevailing and will continue to prevail. And what I mean by that, will continue to be, because it is mankind, it is man, it is woman that are indigenous, absolutely indigenous to this planet. And there are different types of man and woman, I suppose, from different parts of the planet, different jurisdictions, different traditions, different religions, different, that go back over time, that go back over the ages. But there was an age not that long ago when, it was, as we understand it understand it now, as more. Okay, and the reason why, and the word more is it's connotative. Is it connotative? Is that the right word? It's connotative, and denotive too. So it's specific, but it has many meanings. Yeah, many meanings. It's an identifier of a group of people, but it's a way of life too. It's an outlook. It's a movement. It's a culture. It's an ideology. It's a religion. It's all of those things. It's civics. It's everything. It's everything that is connected to, put simply, nature, or nature and natural order. And I don't mean order as in order. I'm talking about, there's a cosmological, there's a universal order to things. There's a universality and a conformity and a synchronicity and a harmoniousness in nature. And it only becomes a dissonant and disharmonious when we are not moving in synchronicity to it, when we're not in tune with it, in rhythm with it. And we haven't been. We've been preoccupied with other things. And since as an example, the doctrine of discovery. So that is the idea that people are quite clearly preoccupied for whatever reasons, and we can talk about that at some point. And I believe that will have to be revealed too, because I don't know why it is that there's a group of people, commonly known as Europeans, that sat down and thought, what we want to do, what we're going to agree to do, is going to steal people's shit, and we're going to do it under this doctrine of discovery, which is, if we like it and if we've discovered it, we're having it. Now, what is the attitude and the mentality that made this group of people think, right, sit down one day and thought, we like or we don't like what it is that we're observing by all these Moors running up and down the place, living civilized, building castles, and living a Tartarian lifestyle, if you will. Scientifically are able to work with the ether, were able to develop free electricity and gas, and it was in homes, and the buildings were there, and people were living great, it seems to me. And then at the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, that's when we start to become really focused on the notion of industrialization and technology. So when we see the advent of the world's fairs, which seem to be showing off a technology or a lifestyle or a world that we were evidently going to be moving into. But I wonder whether or not it was showcasing a world that already existed, but had been destroyed, and it was being destroyed throughout the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. And there is evidence, at least for these 16th, 17th, and 19th century, that there's quite clearly conflict going on between the indigenous of Europe, Iberia, and across the globe. Um, Latterly, the Americas, insofar as the 16, 1700s, 1800s rather, 1870, 18 and 19 centuries, where there's conflict going on, and between it seems between Rome, there's already an established order of things that is being challenged uh, by what we would now describe as Europe, as we understand it now: Spaniards, Portuguese, the English, um, and again, even at that time, the time of Christopher Columbus, etc. You know, uh, when this transatlantic slave trade ought to have been around. There's lots of uh, territorial challenges and conflicts. It's the first time that we're seeing things like notions of ethnic cleansing, what that was going on across Europe. That was going on. Was also going on in the Americas after the Mayflower landed, which I am now just wanting to challenge. That I don't believe that it was. I think there were Europeans that were fleeing persecution and wanted to be free and go to the free land that was America. Um, but there are some treaties, there are some contracts, there are some agreements that were made that describe melanated peoples leaving the continent of Europe, Iberia, and Great Britain also, and being deported to the Americas, to the what was now the colonies, it was called, which included the Caribbean islands too, known records. So, you know, we need to have another look at this history. And actually, we don't need to be doing anything. I and melanated people need to do that looking and write it for ourselves, for us to make meaning of history and to look to our own sources, because to gather the information so that we can put it together and make, as I say, make our own meaning of that history, and to go to other sources other than the ones that have been ascribed and prescribed, Darwin, whoever they may be, those people that have given us the current narrative that we have about history. They're unreliable, totally unreliable, completely unreliable. But there are sources out there that can tell you, offer a different perspective and a different narrative. And there's much out there, and it does portray and paint a very different picture, and actually reveals some of the rationale for things, for treaties, for contracts to be made between particular groups of. I'm going to say nations, but we can't really call them nations. They seem to me they are different corporations getting together in order to be able to steal the inheritance and birthright and alleged titles of indigenous peoples. So again, going back to the doctrine of discovery, as one of those contracts that was created between groups of people to advance the idea of, I don't know what you want to call it, world domination, the eradication of melanated peoples. Maybe it's done through envy and jealousy. I don't know. I don't care. The cat's out the bag, is that right? The truth's out the bag, whatever it is. It's trying to get out the bag, that's for sure. And what's as I say, what's disconcerting more than anything, is that the people that perpetrated the lie, maybe that's what you do actually. um, in enacting the deceit, the deception, the delusion, and keeping it hidden, is that it still remains hidden. People are still not wanting to speak the truth. So they continue to pretend that, but openly admitting that what I'm saying is not new information. It's not known by the modern day European, by modern day governments, by modern day politicians, by your modern day corporations, by your modern day judges. They know, you all bloody well know, and you still trying to keep it going. It won't stand. It can't. It cannot. The Aquarian light is far, far stronger. Everyone's going to have to confess their own, and this is part of it, I suppose. You know, this information coming out, and people are starting to sort of say what the truth is, in spits and starts, and still in very coded ways. You know, Mark Christopher as an example. Go and check him out. He's not a happy man at all, and quite rightly too, I suppose. But he's starting to reveal again how language has been used to. Is it miscreate? Is that the right word? Basically, commit theft on the popular on you know, through things like mortgages and fines and licenses. They're all a fraud, basically. So he's exposing that at the highest levels, but he's only started to do that, in my view, because the people that he has been invested in, the people that he's entrusted, just like most people on the planet, have turned on him, basically. Those same institutions that he has worked for all his life, he's paid all his money to them all his life, only to find out that they consider him to be cattle and chattel, and he's not happy about it. And what he has used his sweat equity to obtain for himself and for his family, and his children, his children's children, he's found out that it's not the case at all. He's still renting, and but he's not on his own. There are lots of people that are beginning to say more about the reality of the life that we've lived over the last 60, 70, 80, 30, 40, 20 years, what that's been all about, from top to bottom and inside out. So you can expect to hear a lot more about what's been really going on, and who the true inheritors are, who the true, who has true birthright, who has allodial titles, and to where. Yeah, it will start to come out now. It's starting to come out. So I just wanted to sort of say that. I was hoping that to be a quick one, and it's 24 minutes. I was 2 minutes in. I'm not going to be tagging this one on the back of anything. So until the next time, may your ERP remain strong. I have got a couple of videos actually that I'm explaining the allodial title, allodial, what the word means. And that's what I wanted to do at the beginning of this. I wanted, anyway, right, I'll leave for now. Until the next time, may your ERP remain strong.